Good afternoon. This is Jeannie, and welcome to MindShifter Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor. And my name is Jeannie Rice, and we already have a caller this morning. Michael, are you on the air?
I am here with you. That's awesome that we've got a caller right up. Let's go right with the caller and see what's on the caller's mind.
All right. Skype, you're on.
Wow, that was quick.
That was quick. You're just going to start the show off for us. So who are we speaking to and what's on your mind?
This is Lisa from Boston.
Hi, Lisa from Boston.
How are you?
I am absolutely blessed and highly favored. How about you?
You know, ditto.
Good. Cool.
I'm sorry. Is there a theme to the show today?
The theme to the show is whatever you want to talk about at this moment.
Okay.
You're starting us off.
Okay.
So did you have a question or a thought? Or?
Oh, boy.
We got you by surprise, did we?
Yes, you did.
Oh, cool. Well, of course, our bottom line is always forgiveness.
This is true. And I have a big problem, a big issue with forgiveness.
All right. Tell us about it.
The forgiveness issue is with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find it in my heart to forgive her, and I get to a point
where that's great. Then I've got an easy solution for that one.
Okay.
I would suggest that you never, ever, ever in your life forgive her.
Okay, well, thanks for the call.
Okay, there you go. Now, let's talk about forgiveness.
Okay.
You know, our whole culture has been taught a completely backward idea about forgiveness.
Okay.
We live in a culture that comes out of a Greek thought system. The original teaching on the planet of forgiveness is Aramaic. Mm-hmm. So the Greek thought system goes something like this. I have this terrible, painful thing happening inside of me, which is all your fault. I am your victim, but it's okay. I'll be big about it. I'll forgive you. And I suggest that people never forgive anyone because you can't. Now, if your mom or somebody else does something, crazy, which sometimes people do,
yes,
it's a nice thing to pardon them. And the Greek idea of pardoning has been substituted for forgiveness. So we have people going around pardoning each other all the time, thinking they've forgiven, so they never do their forgiveness work. That's why we have so much conflict in our culture. That's why we have so many divorces. That's why we have wars, because people make the mistake of forgiving each other. Now, if you want to pardon Mom because what she did was off base, that's a really nice thing to do. But here's the forgiveness work.
Okay.
Your pain is about what's going on inside of you. When you do actual forgiveness work, you will go inside yourself and apply forgiveness to your pain to be freed from your pain. Got nothing to do with Mom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we're working with the Aramaic idea of forgiveness, not the old pardoning idea.
Okay. It's funny because when you said that, it actually made sense. It clicked.
Yeah,
that
makes
I
sense.
need to go inside myself and forgive the pain that's inside me. It actually clicked.
Now, in order to do that, what I'd suggest you do is go to our website, www.whyagain.com, WHYAGAIN.com.
Okay.
And on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets.
Yes.
I would suggest that you download the first item on that page is new chapter 24 from my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
Okay.
And the 7-step forgiveness worksheet. They don't exactly match at this moment. We're doing some work to update on the latest worksheet.
Okay.
But it's an intuitive enough process that from the instructions, you'll be able to make the leap to that 7-step worksheet. Okay. And that's how you go inside yourself. The thing that happens when we experience pain and we want to pretend we're somebody's victim is that we deny ownership for what's going on inside of us.
Okay.
By denying ownership for what's going on inside of us, we dissociate from a part of our minds. Now, that part of our mind is that energy of that dissociation that creates that part of the mind called the dissociated mind is stored in the cell. That dissociated energy is a command for the cell to distort, and that distortion is called disease. And at the same time as the cell is diseased, it's got that dissociated pain in it, so it's always saying, ouch, 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 screaming out, this hurts. But because we're in a state of dissociation, we can't see that part of our minds directly. We can only see that someone else triggers that part of our minds, and we make up our brain's image of them, that is, we project, and then we think they've caused our pain.
Okay.
And so the forgiveness process, what you'll find is that when you start engaging in the Aramaic forgiveness process, which is what that worksheet is about, it's called reality management, you collapse the projections from the dissociated mind, and then you can go back into direct relationship to the dissociated mind and change it. Otherwise, here's what happens. You will tend to pass on the same behaviors from your power person, which sounds like Mom was probably your power person,
yes,
to your children and the people around you.
Yes. Yes.
Against your own will and choice, you'll be doing the same stuff.
That's true.
Until you collapse the projection and come back into the dissociated mind. You may say to yourself, well, I'm never going to be like that, and here I'm doing it. I hate being like that. I'm going to stop it. I will never do it again. And, of course, we don't do it again until somebody triggers that part of our mind again.
Exactly.
And then that behavior takes over because all the critical thinking in the world and all of the new choices in the world aren't going to change the content of the dissociated mind. They don't touch, they don't change it, and the cell remains distorted as long as it holds that energy.
Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
And it works. It's awesome.
Okay, I will do that because it's time to really start doing some work. Again, you're absolutely right. I can't keep blaming my mother for everything that happens that triggers, the pain and the situation in which we have been in. It's time to move forward and start getting real.
You got it.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm really tired of repeating the same thing over and over again.
Right. Well, I understand. That's why they wrote the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And people who never learn to forgive are condemned to live the title of my book.
That's true.
And people who never learn to go inside and remove that dissociated part end up creating. And if you go back into the ancient scriptures, they said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life.
Amen.
And in our modern updated language, we have not been able to translate that word heart until just the last few decades. What we now know as the heart is the scriptural code word for the unconscious or the dissociated mind. And so what they were saying was take care of what you deny and dissociate from, because that is what runs your life.
That's true. That's true. Amen. Thank you so much.
So when you were absolutely awesome. Delighted to have your call. Thanks for opening the show with that question. Blessings.
Thank you. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Awesome. We have several people that are just sitting in on the chat room. They're just listening, though. They're not asking any questions. So while we're waiting on another call to come in, let's announce the workshops that are coming up starting Sunday.
Oh, yeah, we're in Fort Lauderdale. For all you folks that are up north, we send you heat and warmth. We were supposed to be in Missouri right now, and then we just, we had a choice. We either had to come to Fort Lauderdale or we had to stay and go to Missouri. And, we struggled with that, and what will we do? And we finally decided, okay, it's January, it's December, we'll go to Florida. So here we are. And we're going to start a 7-day series of workshops on Sunday here in Fort Lauderdale. You can jump on our website, whyagain.com, and on the right-hand side, you can just click on the link to schedules. And tomorrow Sunday we're going to do Why Is This Happening to Me Again from 2 to 6 to 5:30. And then Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, we're going to do a 2.5-hour free workshop each evening. I'm not sure the order of the workshops. We're going to do communication. Did you hear what I think I said? Codependence to interdependence, healing through relationships, purpose, personal power, and commitment. Do you remember what the other one is? Empowered to heal.
And
that's Monday night, right?
We just did, that's Monday night. We just finished the flyer just before we had to go to a meeting, so as soon as we finish this radio show, that will be up on the website. So if you're looking right now, you're not going to find it.
So we'll post that after the show. And then next Saturday, all of our travel workshops are done free except for one, which we do very occasionally, and that's MindShifters and Still Point Breathing, which we will do next Saturday. We'll start at 8 in the morning, go through sometime between 5 and 6 in the evening, depending on the size of the group. And that workshop is a really powerful step into process work. So everybody who wants to find out more about that, again, you can go to the website. That flyer is on the site currently. The cost for the day is $125, and it will change your life. And then the next day, the 13th, will actually be at a treatment center here in Pompano, a place called BRT. That flyer is on the website from 2 to 6. We'll be doing Why Is This Happening to Me Again. And then on the 18th, we'll actually be at a center called the Center for Jewish Renewal. On the 18th at 7:30 in the evening, we'll be doing their Saturday evening sermon message. And then the following Wednesday, Friday, yes. And then on following Wednesday, we'll be doing the workshop, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And, it's interesting. People will say to me, Michael, doesn't it get old doing that workshop? I understand that you created that workshop 25 years ago, and there are times when you've done it as many as 3 times in a day. And, no, it never gets old. What I find is each time I teach it, I get another level of understanding, another piece of the puzzle. And so people who've done that workshop, even if you were here when I did it 2 weeks ago and you want to come on Sunday, what you're going to find is in just a week or two, I've learned a whole lot about forgiveness. Because each time you hear that workshop, you'll build a whole new set of brain cells, and there'll be a whole new level of understanding of that process of forgiveness and the dynamic. We look into the whole creative process, how it is for human beings create. So we're going to bring in science, psychology, spiritual psychology, theology, and the ancient Aramaic language to explain and understand how does this whole game of life work? What's our part in it? What has this dissociated mind got to do with our diseases? What does it look like when we heal? So we'll cover that whole process beginning next Sunday in Fort Lauderdale.
The phone number for this show is 646-200-4169. Call in and ask your questions. And I do have a question that was emailed to me. And it's that in the face of someone else being triggered by my actions, I am not clear, is it theirs or is it mine?
Okay. Well, of course, when someone else is triggered by your actions, that's theirs. But if they're being triggers something in you, then that's yours. And what tends to happen when we're in this dissociated mind is we turn everything around. The mind takes what's inside of it, builds pictures, pretends the pictures are outside of it, and so thinks the problem is outside of them. 2,000 years ago, the man named Yeshua would say to the person who's trying to change or fix somebody else, why don't you take the speck out of your own eye before you start taking the beam out of your brother's eye? Do your own work first, then you're a fit support for the person who is caught in that thing that's triggered in them. And, of course, if you put 2 people in a room long enough and often enough, they are going to trigger each other. The difference between the people who get along and the people who don't are those who are triggered, stop, and through responsibility go, something's going on inside of me. How can I tell? I'm feeling it. And we've developed this test in this work to tell whether or not something you're feeling is yours or not. And it's kind of a difficult test, a complex test to apply at first, but after you use it for a while, it gets pretty simple, and it goes like this. How do you tell if something you're feeling is yours or not? Are you feeling it? That's all you need to know. If so, you know it is content in your structure. Whatever your mind is showing you about how they did it and it's all their fault, if you're feeling it, it's content in your structure. And if you choose to forgive, you can always access and change the contents of your structure. And that's our work on forgiveness. That's what we're looking to reestablish on planet Earth, is the understanding of that.
Awesome. Somebody just commented, that's not a good test for empaths.
That's not a good test for empaths. Well, I'm not sure what somebody means by that, but I'd offer that many people who say, I'm empathic, I feel everybody else's pain, excuse me, it's not possible. You can't get an AM signal into an FM radio. You can only get an AM signal into an AM radio and an FM signal into an FM radio. If you're feeling pain and you're in denial of it, somebody else will show up and trigger your pain. And if you're in projection, say, I'm feeling your pain. Now, if I'm feeling something while someone else is in pain, there's only one way I can do that. I've got to have the brain cells fed. I've got to have the resonance in me that matches that. And there are two ways the empath can operate. One way is, I've not faced my pain, I've not dealt with my pain, and I believe that everything I feel is everybody else's pain. Therefore, I am an empath. And that's just another form of denial. It's not true. It's just not true. If you're feeling pain, it's because there's an energy that doesn't belong. Now, if you have those brain cells, if you have that energy in you, and you've worked through it and you've already dealt with the pain, then you will truly be empathic. Gee, I can feel where the energy is in your structure, and I can sense how painful that has been to you because I've been there, done that, and thank God I've worked through that for me, and I'm here to hold the space to support you working through the same. That's the empath that's worked through whatever that is about. But if you don't have the brain cells that match it, you can't feel it. Can't do it. And a lot of times, people who say they're empaths or psychics and such, and you'll see a lot of psychics, it's like their lives are a disaster. Their bodies are pretty distorted and pretty diseased, and their lives are in a lot of trauma, because they're playing this psychic game of, well, you see, I tune into what's terrible in you, and I have pain about it, or I can tell you all about it. But what they're really tuning in through is the same frequency within themselves. And, in fact, they may be adding to it. One of the reasons in the past why there was a warning about psychics was that if you go to the psychic who's got an issue that matches one you have, let's say you've got somebody that's got this relationship issue going on, and they go to the psychic that's had a terrible divorce, that psychic might quite likely say, reading their own field in terms of relationship, oh, you're getting ready for a terrible divorce. And if the person who goes to the psychic is just open to having that seed planted in them, then they accept that seed as their own, and they go about creating a terrible divorce. Where otherwise it might have been just as easily, gee, here's a relationship challenge that through it I would have grown, I would have learned, and I would have strengthened my relationship. If you're really doing your work, if you're really working with forgiveness, one of the things that happens is that when there are conflicts and each person in the relationship takes responsibility and forgives, as a result of the conflicts, the relationship strengthens. If they're not truly forgiving, then as a result of the conflict, the relationship tends to separate and dissipate and fall apart. So you can kind of tell whether you're really doing your work or not, because if you're not, every time there's a conflict, there tends to be a weakening in the relationship instead of a strengthening. And, a sacramental relationship, in the ancient teachings, they talked about sacraments. And a sacrament is something that's designed to take you back to your original true nature, which is love. And as you recognize that, then when there's something of hostility and fear in you that blocks direct experience of love, someone resonates it in you and shows it to you, and you forgive, you've removed that. And having removed that, perhaps with the support of the person who triggered it, perhaps not, then you get to go to a new level, and that awesome experience in that relationship was a gift, and the relationship strengthens as a result. People who don't do that, each time there's a conflict, they tend to hook their brain's image of their partner up to their conflict. And so once that's done, then the person continuously experiences that conflict whenever they're in the presence of the partner, even though the partner's got nothing to do with it except that it's been internally connected in the mind. There's a thing I teach called the file folder effect, and I use an example of, don't think about a purple alligator. There are two files in your mind, one purple, one alligator. And now they're linked. If in tomorrow's show I start the show with don't think about a purple, what's going to fire in your mind? Alligator. If you have fear and your partner happens to be present, or there's the one that resonates it, and you don't take responsibility, and you hook it into your brain's image of them, then forevermore, when you're around that partner, you're going to have fear resonating. And the idea is to be responsible for those fears, those angers, those griefs, those pains, and actually remove them. That is, forgive them from your field. You don't apply forgiveness to them. You don't apply forgiveness to yourself. You apply forgiveness to change the content of your own mind.
That's exactly right. And we have a conversation going on between Sam and myself and a couple other people in the chat room. And Sam and I are trying to explain what you were saying earlier, and maybe you can expand on it a little more about everything that you feel is your own and how you resonate with another person if you've been there and you, like what they're saying is they can feel another, they're still saying that they can feel another person's, whether it's their fear or whatever, and they feel it in their gut. And Sam and I are both saying, in fact, what she just said was, I can walk into a room of people and immediately know who is dealing with their stuff, but I can't feel their stuff. I only have an awareness of it. And that there's a big difference in being aware of what another person is feeling and feeling it yourself. And so we were trying to explain the difference in that, you can be aware, you can be an observer and know what another person's going through and be, compassionate towards them and be a support for them. But if you're feeling anything, even happiness, that it's not another person's, that it's your own.
Yes. Well, I like to use an example of a tuning fork. If I have a middle C tuning fork and I hit it on a desk and I put it near a second tuning fork that's standing perfectly still, that second middle C tuning fork starts to vibrate. It picks up the field. But if I put that vibrating middle C tuning fork in front of the middle A tuning fork, nothing happens. There is no response in the middle A tuning fork. Unless you have a similar frequency, a similar energy stored in you, the presence of that energy in the other cannot resonate what isn't in you. If it is resonating, it's in you. And again, there are two ways that somebody can resonate something that's in me. I recognize it because I've been there, and if I've worked through that, then I'm going to simply hold the space for them. If I feel pain in response to their pain, then I'm feeling I'm like the second tuning fork. I'm the middle C tuning fork. If I have unresolved pain at a middle C and I walk into a room with somebody who's got middle C pain going on, I'll say, if I'm in denial, I'm feeling your pain. I can feel this. As opposed to, if I've worked through that pain, I still have that middle C in me, but I don't have pain. I've forgiven the pain in there. I still have the brain cells for it, so I can go, I get a sense that maybe you're dealing with some fear over a relationship issue. What's happening in your world? Can I support you? And whenever I give people feedback like that, rather than telling them what's going on in them, I'll always do it in the form of asking them. When I see that I have something that I've got that's traumatic, say around an issue that someone else has, and I'll offer that. Here's the sense I get. If I were experiencing that, here's what it would mean for me. Does it feel accurate for you? And you give that person the opportunity to go, okay, I can check that out. Yeah, that makes sense. That is what's going on for me. Or, no, it's actually a little more like this. And so you end up with a different process. But if you don't have the same frequency in you, you can't feel it. There is nowhere for it to land. This is an energetic world. It's governed by the law of physics. You can't put a middle C frequency of pain into another field that doesn't have that middle C frequency in it. If there's still pain in the second field, then that second person is going to, again, in denial, say, I feel your pain. No, your pain has resonated my pain. Before I start trying to fix you or get you to change your pain, I'm going to stop, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to process me and clean me out so that I'm fit support for you. Does that make sense?
They're saying, that it's more of a stepped back feeling and that they think that you're saying something similar. And what I just said was that a good feedback is realizing that as you, whatever you're feeling, that realizing that it's not as intense as maybe it would have been, several days or months or weeks back or whatever, and that as you work through it, that the feeling lessens or it doesn't last as long or whatever, and that's kind of a good feedback that you're working through it. And I look forward to the day that I've totally arrived, but I'm definitely not.
So do I. Actually, when I look, and oftentimes we'll get people who fall in love with this work and say, man, I want to teach this. I'm going to go out on the road and do what you do, Michael. And I always suggest to people, no, don't do that yet. Stay home where it's cheap and work locally, because here's what's going to happen. Everybody you've never dealt with in your life is going to show up. And when they show up, you're going to be up in front of people, and they're going to bring everything up you haven't dealt with. And it's a whole lot less expensive to learn those lessons back home where you have your own house and you're not on the road traveling. Traveling's an expensive thing to do. And I've seen more than one person who tried to do that, and they went bust because they drew. We are resonant energy beings. And what I know is if somebody's going to teach, they're going to pull everybody in that they haven't dealt with. We do an intensive. We do anything from a 9-day to a 65-day intensive at Heartland, our teaching center in the Ozarks in southern Missouri. And one of the first things I say on opening night is, as I'm introducing the workshop, I'll say to people, folks, I have communicated with everybody in your life that you have never dealt with, and they all agreed that they would show up at this workshop. And they do. Now, of course, we don't have the person called Joe or Harry or Bill that's your challenge, but believe me, there's going to be a Joe or a Harry or Bill in the workshop. And they're going to be inclined to turn their head just the right way to trigger that issue that you've got with Joe. And when it comes up, if you remain in denial and dissociation, you'll rage at them and say, and you're just like that friend of mine, Joe, and he did this to me too, and boy, and what we're going to counsel you to do is to stop, take a breath, and recognize your tone of voice and your energy. You've got some pain here. How about rather than trying to fix them, you stop, come back inside yourself, and here's the worksheet. Here's how you get into your own dissociated mind to get rid of that. We had a woman at a workshop about 2 weeks ago, and she was there for 5 days, and she did not crack a smile in 5 days. I mean, literally. 2.5 hours a night, I did not see her lips part in a smile. And the next week we did another series, and she came one night, and afterwards she came up and asked me about, well, what if I've got a partner in my life that's always picking on me and always accusing? I said, well, how about taking a breath? Notice you're not breathing right now. And so what I know from what you just said is that you accuse and you pick on people. Oh, not me. No, I don't. And I said, well, just take a breath and look inside. And she stopped. And the rest of the night she was smiling. And she showed up for about 4 more workshops. And every night she didn't stop laughing and smiling the whole time. Just that little nudge in the context of doing the work that we were doing during that process, she got it. And it shifted. And it changed. And I had the opportunity to speak to her husband a few nights later, and he said, I don't know what happened, but she stopped accusing me. Big change in the relationship. And, I mean, that was just a 30-second little process that we did out in the parking lot. And that's what happens when you have the support. Of course, yesterday we repeated the commitment from the Healing Through Relationships workshop. And I don't hesitate to say that everything I do is autobiographical, as with all of us. And that commitment, if you look at it, you'll see every issue that I've been through. That's how I created the commitment, because I had to face those issues in me. And what I did was I worked toward coming up with a solution for each of the situations that are addressed in that commitment. So if you want to know where I've been, go to the website, read the commitment, and when we are willing to deal with those issues in ourselves, enter into our own dissociated minds, everything changes, and it's awesome.
Exactly. Michael, I'm not real sure there's another Skype call, but it may still be Lisa listening. So I'm going to click on, and there's a Skype caller out there. Lisa, is that still you, or do we have another Skype person that has a question?
Well, it's Diane Buckberger calling. Do you have me on?
Oh, welcome, Diane.
Hi, Diane Buckberger. How are you?
Hi, both of you. I've got
Where are you calling from, Diane?
I'm calling from Ontario, Canada.
All right. That's my hometown, or my home state.
I do the show with Carol on Mondays that you were on.
Oh, all right. Oh, cool. Fabulous.
Yeah, I just calling to give you some support. I've got new brain cells just listening.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, that's the idea. In this work, when I talk about building brain cells, I'm not talking about building new physical structure. I'm talking about storing information in brain cells, and every cell in the body is a brain cell. Where we put the dissociated energy, that's where diseases show up, and when we change that dissociated energy, that's where healing shows up, and it's all physics. It's awesome. So
yeah, I was doing the work before I heard you, and on the show that day with Carol, and I've been working at it ever since, and I see a big change in my life. So I'm probably one of the most dissociative people out there. I'll admit to it, like years ago, but I've been working on it for years, and it's really made a big change in my life and to people around me.
Oh, well, it is certainly a process. Tell us about your show.
Oh, you mean about fifth dimensional living?
Yeah, do a little promo for us. Let folks know what it is.
We've been talking about sort of like some of the basic ideas that you're talking about, changing the way we see things and, developing ourselves into being more than we can be as human beings.
Yes.
And, there's this transition period right now where the Earth is expanding and humans are going along. So there's an awakening period. And the show is just to help people understand that and understand what's going on and to awaken themselves to, not holding themselves back and, being partly in the dissociative mind and, just being what we're supposed to be.
Having the confidence and the trust to move forward?
Yes.
Awesome.
We talk about all
when
sorts
is the
of different
show?
things. It's on at 2 o'clock on Mondays.
2 o'clock on Mondays. So everybody
Eastern
tap
time.
in at 2 o'clock on Monday to Diane and Carol and Fifth Dimensional Living. Time for you. And by the way, did you hear how they named? Do you know how they named Canada?
How did they name Canada?
This is something a lot of Canadians don't know. How they named Canada, the country?
Was it to do with an Indian name?
No. Actually, they had a bingo game, and the premier was pulling the bingo balls out, and he pulled out the C, and everybody went A. And he pulled out the D, and everyone went A, N A, Canada. That's how it was named. It's really how it happened.
I have people make fun of me sometimes because I think I do that once in a while. I do the A.
Out and about in the house, eh?
Well, not quite, but I lived in Nova Scotia, and I think I talked like that at one time when I was a child, so I've lost the accent.
It slips out every once in a while for me, too. That's where people catch me, is in the out and about in the house.
Are you from the Maritimes originally?
No, I'm from Ontario. Hamilton, Ontario is my original home.
From Hamilton, right?
Hamilton. And about 30 years ago, I found out there was a place that was no winter, and I moved south. And, one of the disappointing things right now about being in Florida, and I'm just stepping in and out, is that the pool is cold.
Uh-oh.
So just have pity on me because it is cold. It's chilly.
Well, it's minus 20-something here.
If you hear me flashing, what's that?
It's minus 20-some degrees here, so that should make you feel better.
Burr.
So, Jeannie, you're not from Florida, though, right? You're from
South Tennessee.
That's what I thought. Okay. Well, thanks, and I'm enjoying the show. So I thought I'd just let you know. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
bye
Diane. Blessings.
Once again, our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Call in if you have a question. And there was one thing that came up earlier in a conversation, Michael, about what tool do you use when? Do you always use the forgiveness worksheet, and or what do you recommend? And I know you usually say all of the above.
Right. Yeah, well, we have a whole array of tools. Each workshop, each when we do these workshops we'll be doing next week are 2.5 hours. And, of course, why is this happening to me again? We present the reality management worksheet. If you want to get more detail on that, there is a DVD, it's actually about a 2-hour and 20-minute DVD on our website you can order. There's a 4-hour DVD in that workshop. There's a 4-hour live CD as well as the book and the book on CD, the book Why Is This Happening to Me Again, if you want to access that. But that's the how to get into the dissociated mind, collapse the projections from it, and open the dissociated mind so you can change it. And then in Healing Through Relationships, we'll present the commitment that we talked about yesterday. Communication, did you hear what I think I said, is a 7-step responsibility communication process that moves from what we call projection communication to responsibility communication. It's interesting how many people will be in tremendous pain. They've been through it 87 different times with 42 different people, but when they communicate about it, they don't say a word about themselves. They're still talking about everybody else. And once you recognize that, then what you realize is that you're in projection communication. And so if you find yourself there, then we suggest you use the responsibility communication tool. In the codependence to interdependence, we have a worksheet in that workshop where you look at advice and you start recognizing that your advice to everybody else is the mind's a trickster, and it has us giving other people the advice we need. And what most people find is when they start following their own advice to others, all of a sudden they realize they're a genius at giving advice, and they find parts of their minds that they've been trying to get that advice to for a long time, but because they're using projection communication, they're offering the advice to everybody else. And so that's a different worksheet. That's on there. We have a workshop, Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment, and in that workshop we offer still another worksheet, and it's about stepping into your real purpose for being here, as opposed to what the culture says is, just go get a job, make money. Your real purpose is not only foolish to try, but impossible to do. And so it taps you into your real purpose. And what we find is that, if you look at yourself, everything in this universe is energy, and energy systems don't bring through more energy by efforting. They bring through more energy by aligning. And so it's about aligning with your primary and secondary purpose, aligning your words, your thoughts, your behaviors, your goals, the filters in your mind. And so that's still another tool. So each workshop is a different tool. Naturopath, the keys to health. We look at food. We look at what the proper power supply is for a human being. And so each workshop has a different format. Maybe the filters would be a good thing to address at this point, because there aren't even words in our culture for what they understood in the Aramaic. The understanding of the way the mind operated is so many light years ahead of what the Greeks taught us and what is common in this culture. And many people think that, when Yeshua gave the directive, you must love God, neighbor, and self, that he was talking about something about, behavior toward neighbor. But in fact, the word that he used there was the word rachma. There is no equivalent word in the English language, but it's actually a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that allows your brain to only use brain cells in the frontal lobes, which are where your intentions are stored, that are keyed to love as raw material for your goals. So rachma is a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain. And then there's a second word. Again, there's no equivalent in English or Latin or Greek. It was called kuba. And kuba is a filter in the back of the brain that allows your brain to only use data out of the perceptual mind that's keyed to love. And those two filters, when set together, were called perfect love. And when they said perfect love casts out fear, they were saying if you've got rachma and kuba set, then your mind cannot produce a fear-based reality because your mind is keyed into love. So that advice of love your neighbor is not about your behavior toward your neighbor. It's about keeping connected to what is loving in you, so that you come from a pool of loving intentions, ultimately loving perceptions, and you're able to do more loving behaviors. And you do that because you source that from within you, and you're the one who gets to be steeped in it. The other two filters are hostility and fear. And if we're in hostility, you'll notice that anytime somebody's in hostility, they're always irritated at somebody. Now, there's a little bit of a shadow of this one in our culture. The people will warn you, be careful of Joe. He got up on the wrong side of the bed today. And what they're saying about Joe there is that he's got his hostility filter set. And that means that anybody and everything that he looks at, he's going to be irritated about it. His mind is only going to be able to generate realities based in irritation. And so, be careful. The other filter is that of fear. And whenever fear is active, the mind can only build realities based in what is threatening resonated by that person. So whenever the mind is producing a threat-based reality, you know that you're in the fear filter. The disadvantage of that is that if you're in the fear filter, literally the energy field that you're setting up that's going to draw to you an experience is that based in fear. Who is it? There's a whole crowd of people, and the dog goes for one person. Who does it go for? It goes for the person that has fear of the dog. The dog is tapped into that energy, that frequency. People who live in an attack mind have to find something to resonate them before they'll move into an attack. And so they'll tend to attack the person who has fear first. When you shift into love, the person who's got attack on their mind looks at you, and there's no resonance. There's nowhere for their energy to land. There's nowhere that brings that attack forward, and so they just move on to somebody else, or they literally change their behavior. Many people can relate to that experience from the other end. Have you ever gone into somebody's space totally committed to being loving, nurturing, and caring, and all of a sudden found yourself functioning like a mad banshee? What happened? What happened was you walked into somebody else's space, and because they were in some form of hostility or fear, and you had a matching frequency, that matching frequency brought up in you that attack mode that you have. And so you move into attack maybe against your own will and choice. If you've ever done that, it's a strange feeling, Gee, I came here to be loving with you, and here I am all of a sudden screaming at you, and that's not even like me. What happened? Well, what happened is similar to what we talked about earlier of tuning forks, is if I have a mad banshee in me of a particular quality, and I happen to meet somebody who has a matching frequency, because of that tuning fork effect, because that matching frequency resonates or adds energy to my mad banshee, my mad banshee comes up and takes over, again, often be outside of my own will and choice, and I'm doing something that I'd rather not be doing. And, of course, that's this point at which you go, I have a mad banshee in me. Let's get out the worksheets. I want to clean up this mad banshee. That's not where I want to live. I want to live a human life instead.
Awesome. I think that a good example, too, is the story that you use about the little lady who, 5'2" and lives with a 6-foot-tall drunk, and she's always in fear.
Yeah, and that story, if you haven't heard me tell it in one of our workshops, you think about that little lady who was, she just lives in terror all the time because her fear filter's active. And, she's being beat up all the time. And, maybe you were the one who helped her finally to get out of that environment. You finally helped and pulled her out of it. And 2 weeks later, what did she say? I love him. I want to go back. Now, what has happened? Because there's nothing resonating her fear filter, she shifts back into her love filter, and the only evidence her mind can show her is that which she calls love. It really isn't, but that's what she calls it. And so she goes back. Now, it might only take her 2 minutes to remember why she left, but then, there's another thing that happens in those situations, and we've all heard about it. They say that something in her mind snapped. And all of a sudden she went berserk. Well, it wasn't that something in her mind snapped. What happened was she shifted filters. She shifted out of the fear filter into the hostility filter. Now she cannot see anything threatening about him. She just knows she's peeved, and you don't want to get in her way. I don't care how small she is, because she's going to take him apart. And that's the power of shifting filters. And, if you want to live a human life, the only filter that supports and creates a space inside of physiology for a human life is that filter that was called Brahma. and the other one called Cuba. Those filters are the gateways through which human life is maintained in this human system. One who lives in hostility or fear, I would offer, is not living a human life. They're living something else. And, our goal with this work is to restore human life to planet Earth. That's why we're doing this radio show. That's why Jeannie and I travel 6 to 10 months of the year. Anywhere on the globe we're invited. If you want us in your community, let us know. And what happens is each year we set up a tour. We look at where do we have the most requests, and that's where we'll take our tour. Next year we're already scheduled to be doing Florida, so if you have any other venues in Florida and we're not scheduled in your area, let us know, and we'll very likely be able to create a date that we can come and speak in a venue that you have. All we need is a decent number of people. Each year we simply look at where do we have the most requests, where can we touch the most lives, and that's where we'll take our work. So you can drop a note to us at whyagain.com. You can just jump on the website, and you'll see a thing that says contact at whyagain.com. Send an email, and we'd be delighted to come and share with you live. Well, Gene, do we have any other questions in the chat room or any other callers at this moment?
No, they're all just sitting there quietly. So maybe you can expand a little bit on the breath work that we're going to be doing and the difference in that all-day workshop versus, the regular intensives. I've had several people the last couple of weeks say, oh, well, I'll just get the DVD on it, and I tell them, well, that explains the mind shifter, but it doesn't explain the still point breathing. And so maybe go into how the breath works a little bit just to stimulate some interest for some people to maybe join us on the 12th.
Sure. Well, the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing DVD, it's actually MindShifters an introduction to Still Point Breathing. I don't actually ever teach or write about the Still Point Breathing except in person. It's something you have to be guided through in the initial stages. It's an awesome process. It's ultimately meant to be done for yourself, by yourself, but you have to be facilitated initially. It's not something you just jump into and do yourself. And so that's what we'll be doing. And the difference between the 2.5-hour workshops that we do as we travel around the country and the intensives that we do at Heartland and the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing workshop that we'll do is the difference between an information-oriented workshop and a process-oriented workshop. And so in an information-oriented workshop, that's the shorter ones, I'm going to give out the best information I've got on any particular topic. I'm going to give out the best tools I've got, and then I'm going to invite people to take those tools and put them to work. In a process-oriented workshop, such as the one we're doing next Sunday or next Saturday, MindShifters and Still Point Breathing, we'll offer the tools, and then we'll actually go in and do the process work. We'll actually key in and show you how to use the tool, do some work with the tool, and as it's demonstrated, it reaches a whole different level of power. If you watch people when they're in any kind of upset or they're in a denial state, the first thing they do is hold the breath. And that holding of the breath is how the dissociated mind is built. When we hold the breath, we actually create a barrier. That barrier is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. It's normal to have a barrier between conscious and subconscious awareness. Otherwise, you'd be aware of everything in your mind all at once. It'd be a pretty busy world. But it's unnatural for a human being to have a barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. In the ancient teachings, they called that barrier the veil of the temple. And you remember they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. They were not talking about a purple curtain in a church. They were talking about a barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. And when we hold that unconscious mind, that's where we hold the distorted cell, that's where we hold our diseases, and that becomes the most powerful signal that we send out on an energetic level into the world that brings results to us. And so the still point breathing is a way to open that veil and start to do a mass brain dump, a dump of perhaps years of old traumatic energies, and to get the what we call the non-being mind, the hostility and fear-based mind, quiet. And once it's quiet, all of a sudden there's room for a direct experience of being. And in that workshop, many people have an absolute full-blown light experience. They're right there. They experience themselves as the energy field they are instead of being a body. They experience the absolute, total, complete, awesome presence of love, and it's something once you've had that happen, you just never forget. It becomes a beacon. It becomes a light to guide your life, and it's an awesome process. And, of course, the still point breathing is something that we do in every intensive. We do at Heartland. Heartland, we do anything from 9 days to 65-day intensives. And in those intensives, we always include the still point process. In the Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive, we also do hands-on energy field work, which is a way to realign our physiology as an antenna and get back into as full a flow as we're designed to have. So that's what we'll be doing next Saturday in Fort Lauderdale for anybody that wants to come and play. And, you know, if you're somewhere out of the Florida area at this point and it's time to do another piece of work, you know, Sunday will start, and Sunday, Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, all day Saturday. You know, if you want to come and get some sunshine, might be a time for a trip to Florida. Who knows?
Awesome. One more time, the call-in number is 646-200-4169. And we just got a question on the chat room. Do you interpret dreams?
Well, it's not something I specifically get involved in, but when dreams come up, especially related to what we're working on, say, for instance, in an intensive, is I will oftentimes work to tap in and offer people some feedback and possibilities as to what that might mean. To me, one of the biggest things to realize about dreams is that our dreams come from exactly the same place as what we call our waking time. Our dreams come from exactly the same place as our waking consciousness. So when we look at what's happening in a dream, that comes from the firing of brain cells. The world that we look at and we think is outside of us comes from the firing of brain cells. So I think it's oftentimes as important or perhaps more important to have people learn how to interpret their waking realities and recognize that they are reflections of what's going on within their own minds. And if there's pain there, to take that as the opportunity to forgive, to remove the source of that pain so that they can live in a different world. And so that's the direction we go with dreams.
Okay.
So any other questions up there, sweetie? Or?
Nope, I don't have any others, and we've got 7 minutes.
Well, then let's look at another one of the workshops that we do and some of the ideas from the Circle of Life and how to play it. In the Circle of Life and how to play it, we look at the what I call the upper and the lower path. We look at the fact that everybody has events happen in life that resonate pain. The person who looks at the event that resonates pain with Rachma and Kuba active is the person who travels the upper path. And in traveling the upper path, they make good use of even their painful experiences. The person who travels the lower path, that is with the hostility and fear or filters active, they'll experience even wonderful events, and they'll have a downer kind of reality about them. They'll interpret it through hostility and fear. So even the wonderful things can be used to drive them deeper into pain. You know, that old thing of the other shoe's going to drop. Yeah, well, they gave me $1 million, but, you know, sure enough, next week somebody's going to come along and take it. Rather than, somebody gave me $1 million, now I'm going to move forward and accomplish the purpose of my life. And so the upper and lower path is a powerful way, the Circle of Life and how to play it, powerful way to start to look at what the upper path appears like in the mind and to recognize when you're there. And if you're there, you can always use the tools of that particular workshop to move to the upper path and create totally, completely different realities out of any and every situation in your world. And that ultimately is exactly where we want to go with this whole body of work that we've developed around the title of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And One of my favorite proverbs comes out of Africa, and in that community they had a proverb that said, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it takes a community. The reason we're calling this MindShifters Radio is because our support groups that work with these tools are called MindShifters support groups. We have support groups all over the country. Many of the groups, though not all of them, are listed on our website. Jeannie is webmaster and does an awesome job at that. But the MindShifters support groups, if there's not one in your area, create one. Start to work with a group of people. You don't need to know completely or understand this work to have a MindShifters support group. What most support groups do is they get a set of the DVDs and they start watching them and building the brain cells for doing a totally different process. In fact, there's a fellow at Heartland, the last couple of days you've heard David call in, and David created an awesome game called Building the Brain Cells. And David's game of building the brain cells, and David, if you're out there, maybe you want to give us a call and talk about that a little bit. Building the brain cells.
I can click him on.
With us. Yeah,
David, are you there?
Come on in, David.
He may have his phone
anyway,
on
I'll go on
mute.
talking about it until he gets in, if he's listening. But building the brain cells, David recognized the power of being accountable and supported in being committed to doing your work. And it's really been awesome to watch how David has used this building the brain cells game in his own life and to work with others. And he's got several people that have been doing this work for 2, 3, 4 years. And the Building the Brain Cells is a 40-day game that you sign up for. And over a period of 40 days, your commitment is to do 5 worksheets a day and to read 15 minutes of the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? One fellow named Terry Bowling, in fact, maybe Terry, I hear David there, I think, in the background now. Terry has moved to Heartland, I think, in part as a result of the Building the Brain Cells game and working with David on it. And Terry was just telling me recently that he's been playing the game with David now for, I believe, 3 years. Correct me if I'm in error, Terry, but I believe for 3 years, and about 2-3 months ago, he shared with me that he upped his commitment from 5 worksheets a day to 10 worksheets a day because he was getting such awesome results by the consistent application of the tools. Terry, David, are you there?
I'm on here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Hello,
Yes,
hello.
Yes, we can hear you in those 2 minutes.
Okay. So what's your question?
2 minutes.
We're talking about building. Beg your pardon?
We were just talking about building the brain cells, and would love for you to share with us a little bit. We've just got 2 minutes left, and maybe we can do another show that's focused around the building the brain cells, but go ahead and share with us.
Yeah, it really is just as you said. It was 2 years ago this past December that I initiated it with Terry and several other people, and there have been a couple of people that have been playing it every day since then, and it really is about making commitments and having the support and the accountability so that we can build a habit of thought of using these tools and using this information. On our own, what I have discovered over the years of doing my work, that by myself, when I go up against my carbon-based memory of all of the things that I say that I'm going to do and or want to do, then I get to live the title of your book quite a bit. When I'm doing it on my own, is why is this happening to me again? And so this is to support and to give that, especially the initial support of using these tools and the like to create a habit of thought first, and doing that by making agreements and keeping agreements. So that's it.
So David, we've got 90 seconds left, and let me just share with people that the way the game works is people sign up for it for 40 days, and they do 5 worksheets a day, and at the end of each day, they text David or email David saying, I've completed my commitments. So they've got somebody to be accountable for it too, so that, when they're like, well, I really don't want to do this today, I can come up with 1,000 excuses, they know that at the end of the day, they're going to have to be accountable to David. And then on Sunday nights, everybody that's part of the Building the Brain Cells game is on a phone call, on a conference call, or has the opportunity to be on a conference call and have questions, answers, and share their thoughts about the process of building the brain cells. And as you go deeper and deeper into that, it's awesome.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other agreements to make with that. One is to spend a minimum of 15 minutes a day with any of the material, either listening, reading, or watching any of the material on Why Again, and to do a commitment in the mirror. And part of the commitment is that when they're complete with that, as you said, text it on. And again, maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation to put on the website so folks can go to it.
All right, David, we got 10 seconds, so we're gonna close out. We got 10 seconds. I'll just let everybody know I'm up to my waist in the pool. It's still cold. I haven't gotten all the way yet, but I'm getting there. And you have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.